start with Kweku on the next other issue that we are making preliminary comments on, the president's visit to Scotland and the matters that are coming out of that. There are those who are saying that we have been dishonored as a country. We have suffered some bit of embarrassment at the hands of the section of the Scottish, MPs and what they had to do to the president. The minority who sought to boycott the speech that he had to give, they won't clap and suggest clear protestation at him for what he said Ghana's human rights record as far as homosexuality, and those things are concerned. But beyond that, and the threat of boycott and all of that, there are those who are saying when even Malawi's president went to Scotland, Joyce Banda was not allowed to sit in a gallery. She was giving a full statement and giving a special place. Our president was sandwiched together with some other, people who were visiting with him into a gallery, and you could see that they had actually been squeezed into a small place. And people say this is wrong. Criticism that even his handlers should not have allowed him to embark on this visit if that is how we're going to be treated, because you can't see, for example, Nkrumah receiving that treatment or any other president.
Really? The attempt to bring in the Malawi thing, was she not on a state visit? She was on a state visit.
Yes, we are told, yeah, she was on a state visit.
Yes. So that's distinct from this visit, which I think was private. If I'm wrong, I can be corrected by the minister.
Okay.
But I think this visit was private, just like Mr. Rawlings's in 2000. Mr. Rawlings was on an official trip to Britain, but he decided to go visit Scotland. So that was classified as private visit to Scotland. And there are a lot of things that happened, some similar, but I think that the Rawlings one was worse.
Okay.
And I'll give a little account later. But let's focus on the present. The gallery, I'm not sure. I don't know the Scottish Parliament. I don't know the structure.
Okay.
So when we say the gallery, we have to be asking ourselves questions. Was it the VIP gallery, or was it just the gallery that people sit? I'm not sure. Who led the three of them to sit in that small place? Shouldn't it have been just the president and his wife? Why a third person that apparently made them look as if they were squeezing into a little space? So those things, I wasn't there. Those who were there.
For the benefit of those who are watching television, production, can we try, if you have some of the pictures, show it to those who are watching television, how our president and his entourage were squeezed into that small space in the Scottish Parliament? Especially
the three of them who were sitting in front.
Right.
How did that happen? And sometimes pictures can also be deceitful or deceptive. So we have to be careful. The timing of the shot, it showed some uncomfortable faces. Yeah. I've seen other pictures that come out better.
Okay.
But that particular picture, that pictorial representation of that, at that moment, doesn't come with a lot of comfort. The three of them, particularly the foreign minister.
Okay.
And pictures can speak a lot and can be interpreted in many ways. So one picture, and sometimes we in journalism, we can even be mischievous in, not that we forge the picture, but we present that picture which is actual, which is factual, but it tells a lot of stories.
Right.
And so those things, but I'm not going to overemphasize that because it was a private visit, and I don't know how it was arranged. I think the main purpose was this Aberdeen going for the honorary degree in law. So then it turns out that you should go to the Parliament. I'm told he interacted with a few members of Parliament. Is it supposed to be a select committee? Again, I don't have the details on these things, So we have to look at it. If it was not a state visit, I don't see how it was going to be possible to make him come into Parliament and address.
It does appear it was actually a state visit by the post on the president's own Facebook page.
State visit?
Yes.
If it's a state
by
visit,
the post on the president's Facebook page, it was a state visit.
I'm surprised. Because if it was a state visit, then something went wrong with even the sitting arrangement.
Okay.
Then two, that he addressed not the house in its entirety, but a section. Then there's a problem. But these things we will need further and better particulars from the state, I mean Ghana, the Ghanaian side, so that we understand exactly what went on. I would be surprised if it was a state visit, then the reception should have been more dignified, in my candid opinion. And then I would consider that an insult to Ghanaians and to our nation. But I'm hoping that that is not exactly the picture. State visits are handled in a very different way. You know, well, I wasn't there, so I have to be careful. But to address Parliament, in Rawlings's case, if I may just draw some parallels here, was a private visit. And even it took some challenge for the Parliament to agree to invite him. And so the Parliament, they issued a notice to the effect that it was optional, that is, attendance was optional. If you wanted to attend, you could. Interestingly, they have scheduled another serious meeting for MPs. So only 15 MPs turned up for the Rawlings. So Rawlings spoke at the Parliament, the main house, but only 15 MPs. So to the extent that they had to go into the gallery, the press gallery, and bring in a lot of non-MPs and media people to fill the place. This is well reported. I have the British media reports here. And indeed, the First Minister of Scotland and his cabinet actually did not turn up to listen to the Rawlings speech. And indeed, Rawlings, unfortunately, for himself, for him and us, marred the situation because he was angry at some media reports that the Scottish media, the British media had put out about his wife being a cocaine dealer and that they used the money to buy guns. And see, there was a Scottish man who had died in Ghana through road rage. He had an accident here, one Mr. Kell, he used to be with the International Hospitals Group. And his wife had gone to Scotland back and raised huge uproar over the husband's death and how the corpse, the remains, was treated at the hospital mortuary. So Rawlings got there and there was a bad negative media about him and Ghana. And of course, unfortunately, because he was previously a military despot, that was used as part of the reasons to paint him in a very negative way. And so he got angry. And when the speaker introduced him and was going to ask for question and answer time, President, out of anger, exploded and took on the British media, took on the Scottish media, and then asked our ambassador to bring him some clippings, newspaper clippings that he had already done, and used that and made a lot of noise. So right after that, the speaker cancelled the question and answer session. These are documented. I think that was more embarrassing in terms of our image. I'm not too sure that this president, on this visit, has inflicted on himself any such embarrassment.
Well, there have been suggestions that he could have done a similar thing. Could have boycotted them and told them his peace of mind, particularly for not the treatment as in the status of honor, you know, he received, but for the protestations that came. And the suggestions about what we should do about our own laws.
No, listen, that's Parliament. That's Parliament. The Scottish Parliament. They're like our Parliament too. You go there, Parliament will heckle you here and there. They do. Even the Queen, when the Queen came to Ghana and addressed Parliament, there were a few moments of heckling. People complained and condemned it, but that's Parliament.
I see.
Sometimes it does, those things do happen. Okay? As for the question of the gay rights and those things, you know, to be honest, it's our legal regime that I think was the target. Okay? That was the target that they were complaining about. Well, I don't know what others. When it comes to these things, I'm illiberal. I don't think we should do anything to promote that lunatic, you know, behavior in my candid opinion, it's a personal thing. I'm not progressive when it comes. I'm highly conservative. I'm against it. Even our laws, I'm not sure are tightened, strict enough. There was just one incident of somebody being beaten here and there, and all those things were reflected in the British media, in the Scottish media. So we are seen as if we are a nation out there harassing and intimidating and brutalizing gays. I don't think that's the real situation in this country.
I see.
I don't think so.
Well, I read the comments and what the media reported as Asa Nkrumah fumes at Scottish MPs over Mahama boycott to you. But just to point out to Kweku that, yes, our laws are against the practice as it is said.
But in a very explicit sense.
Yes, but our laws are not actually, there's a deficit in our law, particularly the section 104 of the criminal and other offences law. It criminalizes gay relations. It does not criminalize lesbian relations because it is talking about unnatural carnal knowledge. And as common law, the definition of unnatural carnal knowledge is penile penetration of anything other than a vagina. So women don't have penises, so to speak. So they can commit unnatural carnal knowledge. So lesbianism is not taken care of.
I hear you. I'm educated.
Now, this is what Asa Nkrumah wrote when the news came forward. He says, I'm going to restrain, I'm going to try to remain restrained in my language. I feel offended at what some Scottish MPs did or sought to do yesterday. Some TV footage is making rounds on social media. That behavior was cheap, low, crass, and not right. The president did not pass the law on homosexuality. He has no power to repeal them. That power is for Parliament. And for the information of these dummies, those laws were first written in official statute here by the UK, the country to which they, the Scots, technically and happily remain a colony. And they are just gleefully, they just gleefully voted to remain so. And, you know, and he's not alone. You would see a lot more people coming on, particularly in social media, expressing a lot of anger at the manner in which the president was treated. What do you say?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't seen any of the footages.
Okay.
But for me, I think that my country is a sovereign state. Nobody should come and dictate to us what we can or cannot do. And if we know we have an issue with the laws of our nation, we have mechanisms through which we can change them. And that will be built on consensus. And majority will carry the day. So if you have a foreign head of state in your country, I think that you should follow all the proper protocols and not make that person look as if he's come to you like a small child to come and either ask advice or ask for help or something like that, and therefore you decide what you want to dish out to them. But I have to say that I agree with the fact that Parliament will always be Parliament. So if it's not the whole Parliament and it's not the Speaker or whoever is the head there, standing on behalf of the country and making all those unnecessary statements, then I think we can accept it as a usual parliamentary activities where one side is screaming murder, where the other side is screaming, you know, enhancing human life, you see. So if we look at it that way, then we can tone down that side. But definitely, they have no right whatsoever to try and say that, you know, our laws have to be changed. And I agree with Ace. We were all there together with you in those old past days when those laws were written. So even if you feel you have changed yours, you have to pass through the right channel and try to convince and explain why you had to change it and tell us what the advantages or disadvantages are. But at the end of the day, we still, as Ghanaians, have to make up our minds.
Right. And
because
Professor
we
Mills
live
was very
here.
blunt about it in his time.
You see, we live here. So anything that we feel is wrong, it is us because we will be living with it on a daily basis.
Okay.
And definitely, if at some point we see that we have made a mistake, for goodness sake, we follow our own procedures to correct that problem. But nobody can get up and basically push it's our head of state, for goodness sake. You know, he is the president of Ghana, not the president of Mahama. So if he goes out, it's all of us who are being represented there.
Right.
And I don't think that anybody should treat us shabbily.
Right.
Because they are going through their problems. They have all sorts of problems in that country.
Right.
You know, that they have to focus on and deal with. So mind your own business. I think that's what we should tell them. Mind your own business and leave us alone. We're a sovereign country.
As a colony like you.
Yeah, you are a colony. You can't even choose where you want to go. You've been brutalized for so many years. You've been deprived of so many things. Why aren't you fighting for your freedom so that you also become a sovereign state?
Manasseh Azure Awini, in his usual, style, writes and takes them on seriously, but also says that, well, we allowed ourselves for a population of 5.3 million to disrespect our president in the manner we did, and he's suggesting that we allowed ourselves for that to come upon us. I just quote a bit of what he says. He says, "As we are angry at how our most important personality was treated outside, we should also learn from what has happened. The Gruni or the Frafres say, if you drag your fat goat to Bolga market and price it cheaply, the buyers will act on the price tag of your goat and not its size."
Oh, well, Samson, well, what happened in Scotland, like Kweku said, may not be unusual, the way a manner people have interpreted it. Parliamentary practice and procedure is sometimes very strange. Heckling is part of, the business of Parliament, especially when a section of MPs are opposed to a stance taken by a personality who has to appear before them and either speak to the issue in question or even speak to some other issues other than the specific issue that they are opposed to. In our own Parliament, during question time, the way a manner ministers of state are sometimes heckled by the opposition. If you are not too used to parliamentary procedure, sometimes you take very serious offense at the behavior of some MPs on the floor of the House.
You're saying you are okay with this?
Well, Samson, I'm not saying that I am okay with that arrangement. I have had occasion to attempt to cite the entire minority bench for contempt of Parliament when President Mahama appeared to deliver, his State of the Nation address 2 years ago, and they came out with placards with the inscription "Steelers" and all that. I thought that that behavior was unparliamentary, and so I actually petitioned the Speaker of Parliament at the time to refer the entire minority bench to the Privileges Committee for punishment to be exacted. But of course, that attempt was aborted along the line. And so I tend to agree with Kweku that sometimes it's normal. And my colleague here, I think, would have been one of the victims if that attempt had succeeded. He probably would have been imprisoned by the Marshal of Parliament. Samson, I think that the President's visit to Scotland ought to be contextualized. He did not visit the Scottish Parliament to address them like heads of states would normally visit a country, visit the Parliament, and given the opportunity to address the Parliament. Recently, the Turkish president was in our country. He came to Parliament and addressed Parliament. And so the protocol arrangement is usually different if the president has to, a foreign president, a visiting president, has to address the Parliament.
we break all the traffic regulations for them when they come. Yeah.
But it depends on the
Similarly.
nature of the visit.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That's because you are still asking whether, yes, and on television some of you are seeing some of the pictures of what went on. Now, that's because you are still not sure whether it was a state visit or it was a private visit.
I'm confused there.
And I'm saying, I take what the Flagstaff House put out. What they put out, Flagstaff House, on the page was this. President John Mahama, Dramani Mahama, and his wife, Lordina, have arrived in Glasgow, Scotland, for an official visit, which will include a meeting this afternoon with the First Minister of the Scottish
official
Parliament,
visit is
right,
not
Honourable?
exactly state visit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There is an extension.
Yeah. All right.
Am I right?
So they give out everything here. Ahead of this afternoon's meeting, President Mahama will be the guest of the presiding officer of the Scottish Parliament and observe the First Minister's questioning time. He will also address a group of parliamentarians in the company of the presiding officer. Ghana and Scotland have years of fruitful political and economic relations, with a number of Scottish oil and gas firms expressing interest in Ghana's new energy sector. Educational collaboration has also been enhanced lately, with many Ghanaian students enrolling in universities in Dundee, Glasgow, and Aberdeen for their higher degrees. President Mahama will tomorrow, Friday, and this was on Thursday, be honored with an honorary Doctor of Laws, LLD degree by the University of Aberdeen, after which he will meet and interact with a group of UK business executives before returning home. This is Media Office, Flagstaff House Communication Bureau, Office of the President, Flagstaff House, Kanda, Accra, Ghana.
Yes. Yeah, this is official visit.
Official,
okay.
so not state. I
Okay.
think there's a distinction there. We may have to consult the diplomats
Right.
for clarification on that subject.
Right.
Okay. But if you ask me, my own guess is that there is a special reason why the president did not even agree to address the parliament as a whole. Why? Scotland is not an independent state. In fact, Scotland is not a state in protocol terms. They form part of the union known as the United Kingdom. And so more appropriately, if the president has to address the parliament as the president of a sovereign nation, I think that in line with reciprocity, the president may or ought to have gone to Westminster to address the parliament.
He could still have addressed the parliament.
Well, that is my own guess. That is my own guess. No. I'm just trying to.
There are precedents of other heads of states having addressed the Scottish
Because I just
parliament.
mentioned Joyce Banda, who went there from Malawi and addressed the entire House of Parliament.
Well.
Maybe it wasn't part of the arrangement.
Part of their very well. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you see, this is not a parliament that has the status of our parliament, because Scotland is not an independent state, I mean, within that context.
Even worse, you know.
You see, so something, I mean, having said that, I think that we need to also take into account what the sitting arrangement in the chamber in Scotland is. I haven't been there before, so I can't tell. Maybe the only available space for strangers in that particular sense, you know, to sit is in the public gallery. In our own experience, if you come to the chamber, you have the gallery, but you have another area which is designated for some other visitors. For instance, foreign MPs visiting our house, they have a special place where they sit. Now, if it is a foreign head of state, if he has to address the house, he sits next to the speaker. That is the arrangement in our house. I don't know what the arrangement in the Scottish Parliament is. And so if you haven't been there, it may be...
if it's a head of state in Ghana? If
Okay.
a head of
Well,
state comes...
But something I wanted to
let's
talk about
finish
the
this quickly.
issue of gay rights and what the position in Ghana is. I agree with Ace. Ghana is a sovereign country. We have some of these laws which were even bequeathed to us by the British which once colonized us, and still are the colonizers of Scotland. And so the decision to keep those laws in our criminal statute books is the sovereign will of the people of Ghana.
Okay.
Scotland cannot impose its will on Ghana.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what do you say? Whether or not he was to address the parliament or he was to just listed to observe, the question time, is it okay where he was put? And subsequently, the other issues that have come up. There are questions that include whether or not, if it were Obama who was getting into that parliament, would he have, be made to sit and watch proceedings from the gallery as was done to our president?
Yeah, Samson, I've listened to my colleague panelists, and I'm particularly happy with Kwaku's initiative because I know Scottish Parliament. I have been there. I was there when President Rawlings visited.
Interesting.
Yes, 2000, the year 2000, exactly 16 years today. And I had gone to University of Edinburgh to represent my faculty, Renewable Natural Resources, KUST, on International Forestry Students Symposium at the University of Edinburgh. I spent 3 weeks there. The then rector, or the dean, or the chancellor of the university, Professor Robin Harper, happened to be an MP also. So he invited me and took me to the parliament. So I was sandwiched between the MPs at the gallery there. The arrangement is nothing too different from what we're describing here. Head of states, and for that matter, the then president, Rawlings and his entourage, were given that front row, facing the gallery. That was the arrangement of certain. I was in a calico with kente wrapped here. So clearly, you look out there and you see me as a Ghanaian, a black man and a Ghanaian, sitting among the MPs, and they are sitting. So I watched everything, I witnessed everything. The then President Rawlings had come from UN Assembly meeting from New York and made a stopover in UK, and I'm told he came over. That was the time President Rawlings had bandaged one of his hands. One of his hands was in the bandage. So after the exercise in the program, the international press sought to interview me, the CNN and the BBC. And at that time, I was torn between my state. This is my president, and that had been that Kwaku have enumerated everything. The kind of embarrassment and all those things. So I had to come to the rescue of my president and nation at the interview by the international press. Of course, they did not air it because they wanted me to say the other things. However, it is instructive to note that President Rawlings visited Scottish Parliament, and these things happened. At the tail end of it, it was in an election year, 2000.
It was 2000, yeah.
Yeah, 2000, September. At the tail end of it, NDC lost elections. We have history repeating itself today. The sitting president has been there.
I was just about asking why you're not paying attention and focusing on the issue, really.
I'm coming there.
That's why you are smuggling.
No, I'm serious.
This is smuggling.
Because what we used to joke with in school about an agama lizard kind of reaction to the question.
Because I'm a living witness of what happened.
Please do it quickly.
And today it has happened. We cannot take away the embarrassment. Yeah, we've been embarrassed. And like Senior Ace said, Scotland has no business embarrassing our president and the nation as it is. But it goes beyond that. We are dealing with international relations here, nations with nations. You cannot take away Scotland being part of the union. And when it comes to certain things, they are a state on its own. For instance, when it comes to a representation at the World Cup and all those things. Their union is somehow of some kind. So Scotland is on its own, and they are on their feet. And this is Parliament.
Do countries have diplomatic relations?
Please, I did not
with Scotland.
I did not interject when you had your time.
No, but
me.
keep to the facts. If you are stating something that's not factual, he's got the right to make an intervention, and I allow it.
Yeah, but then something. Scotland has a parliament, and parliament is parliament. Parliament is nothing other than parliament.
Proceed and conclude.
Good. So they did what they did. Only they know. They do know. And coming to the lesbian and the gayism and all those things, is it the case that they've been promised behind closed doors that Ghana was going to do something about it? Because we know they didn't make any such suggestion. Yes, they did not. But their actions and their protest might have some underpinning.
See, Amnesty International too has painted a certain picture relative to these gays
and how they have been treated in town. You know,
violence
our local media itself has reported of how gays have been beaten up.
That's right.
And Kwaku have just said, and we all know that is not a true picture. We all know.
It's an exaggerated.
It's an exaggerated.
But
yes.
part of it, I think, was the Jamestown one.
Yeah, the Jamestown one.
So property was destroyed.
That's right.
So I'm sure they just stood on that one and make it look as if it's all.
So it's an exaggeration. Yes. You can think about the two Gitmo detainees that have been so controversial days past. Arrangements, agreements, and negotiations had gone on at the blind side of the people of Ghana. So who knows? Some meetings, some arrangements, some agreements might have been initiated somehow. And they feel that promises are not being adhered to. So we must be circumspect in these things.
You're making a speculation, and then you proceed to say promises are not being adhered to.
No.
You ask the question whether maybe there must have been some promise.
Yes.
And then you proceed to make a conclusive statement on that.
No, I think he's saying maybe they.
Yes.
Not him,
not
they.
me.
Yeah, that's
not
how
me.
I understood
Okay.
it.
You see, Samson.
Even then, Samson, this is a wild speculation. I mean, it's unacceptable for my colleague to make these speculations on this platform.
Colleague, listen.
Facts.
Yes.
How can you say our president may have struck some agreement in relation
you
to...
are saying, I haven't
gay
said...
rights.
but
that's what you said.
Listen to me carefully. I'm saying, is it the case? Is it the case? So, what has happened allows room for speculation. So, we want more answers. There are more questions to this. We cannot let
Amnesty was making an issue of it because they had been promised that Ghana was going to do something.
Well,
is that why it's the...
Well, I do not know.
But that's not the thrust of Amnesty's point.
No,
they are pointing to
human rights.
Harassment.
Yes.
And is it true that we are doing
have happened, and they have been exaggerated. That's what we all believe.
Jamestown one, I
So now, as embarrassed as we are, we should be asking questions.
Okay.
I've told you this is international relations, and we need to probe further.
Okay, so we need to move on and to deal with questions of terrorism, alert in Ghana, and questions of the national debt that we can't tell how much exactly it is. Now, this message is coming from Sofo Yamusa in Gumbungu. He says that Ghanaians need the likes of Awuni in the service, especially in this election year, where we need neutral policing to ensure credible and transparent elections. Musa Abatoa in Kumasi says President Mahama has demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that he is a leader of the people. Even the world has recognized him, and his outstanding leadership has manifested the honoring of the doctoral degree in law. Okay, that's interesting. Kwame Boedu Gorazo in Kent says that whatever gallery that was, a president of a country should not suffer that discomfort. It was evidently inconveniencing. The Scottish Parliament mistreated our president and disrespected our country, whether private or a state visit. I don't like Stan Dogbe much, but this time around, his reaction to the dodgy journalist was protective, swift, and reasonable. He must be commended. Okay, so there's a small aspect that this contributor has brought in, and it's about the fact that there was someone who wanted, a BBC reporter, who wanted to ask the president more questions about gay issues. And Stan Dogbe, you could see a footage in which Stan Dogbe literally, physically prevented him from getting to the president for the president to answer the question.
And we are supposed to commend that.
And he says that is commendable because after all, they are embarrassing our president.
No.
Why should we allow a journalist to ask him gay questions?
My goodness. And we are supposed to commend that? What are we talking about?
Has his work. The
What are we talking
parliamentarians have
about?
their work.
That's not
So
something
it
to
could have
commend.
even been a very good platform.
But
Unless
that's
he
not
was-
happening
is he a
where
potential
journalists want to
was
have
he a
access
terrorist?
to. Journalists want to
Where
have
the
access to the
security, well,
president.
the president has security.
And
if
the aid.
it's
And
a
the aid of the
security
president
risk,
stop the journalists.
if
That's
it's
not
a
happening.
security risk,
Okay.
that's a different matter. And that one is not even Stan who will be
Doing
responsible
so.
for that.
Okay.
But if it was a journalist that was probing, and he was not doing it in any intimidating and violent manner, I don't think that he should be stopped physically.
Okay.
The president is capable of answering the
I
question.
mean, it's a
Or,
communicating
or avoiding.
expert.
Bediako in Faude in Kumasi says, there is one question I want to ask. Was Mahama tricked to accept homosexuality for a doctorate degree? If not, why didn't he blatantly refuse the engagement and return to Ghana? Ghana is a sovereign nation, and our leaders must put its integrity and independence at the fore on every personal engagement. Oliver Bamba in Salga says the unwanted behavior exhibited by the Scottish Parliament. Okay, let's be careful about it. It's not really the Scottish Parliament. It was just a section of the MPs, especially the opposition, was disrespectful to the sovereignty of Ghana. The Scottish government succeeded in honoring President Mahama with a doctorate degree and dishonoring 25 million plus Ghanaians with their unwanted behavior. What an irony. Okay, thank you for
But the
those
honoring,
comments.
was it the government?
It was the
university?
president, and the president dedicated it to the people of Ghana.
Yeah.
Right. There is Kweku Wusu Ansa. He says that he thinks that James and Madame Ivaloko have all missed the point that Scotland is as strong as England. It was the same fashion. Okay, the journalist asked the minister the question. Okay, so you're bunching up a lot of issues. Okay, and he also tried to explain that it was not really the entire parliament that the president went to meet. Thank you very much. I think that we have an understanding of that. This is a really long message on the gay and homosexual issue sent in by Kwame Sapong Asiedu. I think I'll return to it after this break. We'll be right back.